Welcome back to another enlightening episode of MH Knows or She Knows Someone Who Does, Unlocking Real Estate Secrets. I'm your host, Marianne Holt, and today we have a remarkable guest whose journey is as inspiring as it is educational. Allow me to introduce Patty Jones Thompson, a native of Harrisburg, PA, who relocated to the vibrant city of Philadelphia in 1997, driven by her pursuit of knowledge. Patty holds a bachelor's in science and sociology from Hampton University, a master's in social work degree from the prestigious University of Pennsylvania, and a Juris Doctorate from Rutgers University School of Law in Camden, New Jersey. But Patty's journey doesn't stop there. She's blessed with the gift of administration, which led her to support ministries and inspired her to launch her own venture, Essential Peace Consultants, LLC. As CEO and founder, Patty serves as a strategic guide for individuals embarking on the path of starting both nonprofit and for-profit entities. Patty's dedication extends beyond the boardroom. She actively serves on ministry and nonprofit boards, sharing her invaluable insights on nonprofit developments at workshops. Patty's commitment to social justice is deeply rooted with over 25 years of experience supporting families and justice-involved youth. Patty is an accomplished professional and a devoted mother of 3 incredibly gifted young adults. She embodies her passion for education, knowledge, and service by uplifting others through her work. Today, Patty joins us to unravel the complexities of nonprofit organization, shedding light on the journey of creating and nurturing them. Whether you're an aspiring nonprofit founder, a curious soul, or somebody who wants to understand the driving force behind positive change, you're in for a treat today. Patty, thank you for joining us and bringing your wealth of knowledge to our listeners. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this opportunity, and I look forward to sharing information about nonprofit organizations.
Patty, I'm so thrilled that Ramona introduced us, and I'm even more delighted that you agreed to discuss the ins and outs of nonprofit with us today. When I told folks I planned to do a show on this subject, many people were very excited and looking forward to this because many of them, including myself, have visions, we have dreams, and we think about setting up nonprofits, but we think that process of forming a nonprofit is too daunting and we have no idea where to begin. So I want to start off by asking you, why did you decide to specialize in helping nonprofit organizations?
Well, it's actually exactly what you described in the description. So many people feel like it's a lot of work, it's challenging. They don't understand the legalities or the paperwork that's needed when putting an organization together. And so in my experience, I've run across those type of people. And when they hear the type of work I've done, I was working with a nonprofit with my former church. And so I was exposed to different people, and they were like, how did you do this? Or how do I do this? Or what goes into it? And so that sort of led me to start helping people just on a personal level. But then it was such a demand that I said, well, let me venture out and turn this into a business so that I can have more access and be able to help more people. And so, again, it's understanding what goes into it. I feel like with my background, I'm able to explain those things in simpler terms for people to understand. And so, they find it easy to hear it the way I explain it. And so it doesn't seem as daunting when we actually start breaking things down.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. Can you explain why starting a nonprofit differs from other types of businesses and what makes it both good and challenging?
Yes. So there are several types of business structures, right? You have nonprofit, you have LLCs, you have corporations, S Corp, and all of those outside of nonprofit organizations, you always deal with tax liability, right? So they're all businesses, but the biggest difference is the tax liabilities.
Mhm.
And so when you're sitting down to determine a type of business you're looking to set up, we know nonprofits focus on charitable, education, and religious work, right? And so you're not so much looking to make a profit, but you're looking to benefit the community. And so that's the structure of a nonprofit. Whereas the other ones, LLCs, sole proprietorships, corporations, you're looking to make a profit, which is fine. That's excellent. But then when you start looking at the structures, you're looking at the tax liability. And so certainly for nonprofit, there are no tax liabilities that come with that. Whereas with the LLC, there's limited liability, and then corporations, that's a whole nother entity and a whole other set of rules and guidelines.
And we're going to have a second show on that. We are definitely going to
Yes.
talk about that. So
Yes.
what are the basic steps a person would need to take to start a nonprofit?
Yes. So what I ask people is, what problem in our society are you looking to address? You know, what difference are you trying to make? What needs are out there? And so people already kind of have that together from their experience. It's usually personal things that people go through that lead them to want to help in that area. And so once they kind of have that down, we sort of meet, sort of talk about picking a creative name, right?
Okay.
Because you want that to stand out. You
Okay.
also want to consider your board, right? And so in the state of Pennsylvania, and even from the government standpoint, you have to have a minimum of 3 board members, right? And they will be your president, secretary, and treasurer are key
Okay.
people that are needed on your board. And so you can
Okay.
have several members, but at the minimum, you have those 3. And so you really want to think about who will buy into your vision, who will buy into this mission, and is willing to go along the ride with you as you're considering your board members, right?
Okay.
And so then you want to get into the paperwork. So that includes filing articles of corporation with the state as a nonprofit entity. You want to obtain your EIN number, which is your employee identification number. And then you want to start working on your bylaws, right? And that sort of, I always say the bylaws are sort of like the Bible of your organization. What are the guidelines? What are the rules? And then you want to file your application for recognition for exemption, also known as 501c3, right? Just the technical term. Yeah.
So is that the record of exemption? Is that what they need to not have to pay taxes?
Yes. So you not only do you file within your state as a nonprofit, but in order to be tax exempt, you have to follow through and file your paperwork with the government, which is your
Okay.
501c3. And that application is called the recognition for exemption.
Okay.
And your number, your EIN number, essentially becomes your tax exempt number.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
I know I have a list of questions, but I'm going to actually talk to you more about like if I wanted to
Okay.
do this. And I think maybe that'll help me to talk basic the way that other people,
Yes.
the same questions they have. Okay. I'm in the real estate business, right? I'm a real estate agent, and I care about what's going on in the community. I care about affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So what if that was my platform, and I also care about teaching. Like, that's why I do these podcasts.
Yes.
Is there a nonprofit solution or something, a way that I can tap into nonprofit funds doing what I do, educating?
There absolutely is. And you said that, educating. So you can start a nonprofit to offer workshops and education on home ownership, home buying, maintaining your home.
Oh, wow.
And the way you would do that, you could set up your nonprofit entity, and then you can target and request specific funding to host those workshops. And even in hosting those workshops, then maybe there's some incentive where the people come, where there's like a certificate, or maybe there's even you're able to get enough funds and support under your tax exempt to even help with a grant for them by completing your courses. And even to pay for your time. And so that's why you would set it up as a nonprofit, because what you would charge for hosting that workshop, you can get it through your nonprofit by getting funding or grants to support the work that you're doing. And then even in terms of affordable housing, oh my goodness, there's tons of funding.
Oh,
And I
wow.
don't say that lightly, but there is enough funding and so many entities that have funding for nonprofits to assist in affordable housing. And the reason why is because those entities that are given the funding, for example, TD Bank has a housing funding program that they do each year. They call it something different each year, but if you're helping people through workshops and classes, and you have property, or you're able to have property donated to your organization, then they actually provide funding to help you fix up those properties so that they become affordable housing and that you're targeting a specific population, right?
Okay.
And the reason why they really like that, and not just TD, but other entities, is because you're actually walking that person along the steps. And so it's more likely that they'll stay in their home because they have someone, sort of like a case manager or support person, educating them on the process along the way until they're able to sort of, do it all on their own.
Okay.
And so there's lots of funding to do affordable housing. But again, well, I shouldn't say but, I'll say and. You need that nonprofit entity to set it up, because guess what? Corporations like donating, it's a tax write-off for them, and they can support what you're doing as well as benefit themselves.
Okay. So the person who decides that they want to enter into that, they want to
Mhm.
have a nonprofit that helps with affordable housing, or they want to have a nonprofit that they teach on housing. Okay. What
Yes.
type of background does that person have to have? What does their credit have to be? Do they have to have money in the bank?
So actually, credit doesn't necessarily come into play until you're looking for, you're trying to establish credit for your organization, right? Whether that's a
Okay.
business or a nonprofit, right?
Okay.
But there's lots of support and actually entities out there that can assist people with building their business credit, right?
Okay.
For
Hmm.
their organization. In
Okay.
terms of how do you get started? So, or what your background need to be. So, of course, if you're not the one with that background in housing, then I would encourage you to have someone on your board who has that background in housing, and being able to have them sort of serve as that expert to sort of guide you along the process. But you
Okay.
certainly should have, if not yourself, someone that has a background in whatever business that you're trying to start, or you be
Oh,
familiar as well, just so you know the ins and outs.
okay, well, that's a good point, because maybe
Mhm.
somebody would want to do something like this, but they don't have the background, but they have the heart for it. But
Exactly.
they just
Yeah.
have to make sure that they have people on the board who understand what it is they're trying to do.
Yes. And I tell people or I suggest to them when they're starting, when you're picking your board members, right? Keep in mind when you're first starting that your board, your initial board is always your working board, right? It's a brand new organization. You need to really work on funding your administration component of it, whether that's letterhead, logos, getting the word out, launching. And so you may only want to meet once a month, or I should say quarterly. But when you're starting off, you may want to have more meetings so that you can get your organization off the ground, right? And so
Okay.
the people that you put on your board, you want to make sure that they want to, like I said before, buy into the mission, but two, have some experience in what your organization, the type of work your organization wants to do in the community. But three, also, you want to have people that can really raise some money or help you raise money for your organization, right?
Okay.
And then four, someone with some administrative skills to help you get it off the ground. right? And no,
Okay.
you cannot do it by yourself. I was just
No.
recently working with an organization that I helped launch. And the founder is like trying to do everything on her own. I'm like, no, that's what your board is for. Pull them in. They bought into
Mm-hmm.
the mission. They understand the work. They're more than willing to help you out. And you have to lean on your board.
Okay. All right. So I guess the key is when I'm choosing my board, I think about all the things that I can't do or don't have time to do, and I would choose
Exactly.
my board members based off of that. So, for instance, well, okay, first of all, you said I have to have a president, a
President,
secretary, and a
secretary, and a
treasurer.
treasurer. Yes.
Okay. So my
Mhm.
treasurer should probably have an accounting background,
I absolutely recommend it.
and my secretary maybe like a, I don't know, marketing background or
Marketing,
administrative.
administration can take really good notes, organize, a person that's
Okay.
organized.
Okay.
Because you absolutely should you have to keep a binder of all your documents as it relates to your organization. And that would
Okay.
sort of fall under the secretary.
Okay. And then the president, what should I look for in a president?
Right. So the president, I always encourage the founder to be the president of their board, especially a new board, because you're steering the car.
Okay.
And so that person really knows the vision, is going to help push the board to carry out the vision, right?
Okay.
Um, Bring other people on the board and recruiting together. I know some people that's fine that are the founders of the organization do like to come off and be a paid employee, usually the CEO or the executive director. And that's fine, but I say when you're starting off your organization, give it a few years before you do that so that you can make sure that your organization is set up in such a way where you can come off the board into that paid position.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. You said something we have to address. Okay.
Yes,
So if I am the president of my board, I
yes.
won't get a paycheck until
You become an employee.
uh,
Yes.
I see. Okay. So I don't want to be a president for a long period of time, right? I
No, not
just
for
gonna
a long
just
period of time.
steer
You
this
want to
ship
steer that.
maybe for
Yes,
6 months. Okay.
yes.
Is that what people do? Is it for about 6 months they steer the ship and
I
then
would
they
say about
bring in
6
another
months.
president?
Yep, 6 months to a year as you're
Okay.
building and getting the funding.
Okay. But no money is coming out of my pocket, or is it?
It doesn't have to. So that's the thing. So you not only the founder, but your board. You want to invest in this organization, in this mission, right? So as
Mm-hmm.
you're getting grants or you're fundraising and you're asking people to invest in your organization, sometimes they're going to ask, "Do you invest?" Or sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you might want to volunteer and say, "We have 100% board investment because we believe in the mission." Right. So I
Mm-hmm.
always say, think about it in that terms. Like, how can someone else invest in your organization if you aren't investing in it? So I'm
Okay.
not saying like,
Even though
empty
I'm
out your
investing my time, my
right.
creativity, my
Yes,
knowledge. Okay.
absolutely. But you still need some funds to drive that car.
Okay.
But I say that too, to be creative. When I usually go and speak at like the initial board meetings or even as you're setting up the board, to
Mhm.
go over your duties and responsibility as a board member.
Okay.
And that certainly comes up. And you can be really creative in how your board donates, right? You can
Okay.
set an amount for the year. You can set an amount quarterly. You could set a large amount and then say, since we're all fundraising, whatever money you bring in for the fundraiser, you deduct it from whatever your yearly donation would be. So you can
Okay.
be really creative, but you also want to look good on paper that says we have 100% board investment.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So my board has to have some money. Okay. Got it. Got it. So do you help people from the very beginning? They have a vision, and do you help them structure that vision and help them to do the paperwork and everything? Help them pick their board? Do you do all that stuff?
I actually do. It depends on your needs. So I can come in as simple as just help you do the application, or I can come in from the beginning and take you all the way to your initial board meeting. And
Wow.
some people say to me, that's a whole lot, and my fees aren't as elaborate as a lot of people that do this kind of work. But for
Hmm.
me, it's a personal interest and actually a calling. And so
Hmm.
I will help you from start all the way, like I said, to your initial board meeting, because people have questions and you want people to be comfortable, right?
Hmm.
And if it's
Hmm.
something beyond my realm of expertise, then I refer or recommend someone to be able to answer those questions for you. But
Okay.
I work with helping you get your name together. We do the name search. And I could be as hands on or hands off as you need me to be.
Okay.
I have no problems filing the paperwork. We can work together on the bylaws, or we can work with your board to create the bylaws. So it really
Okay.
depends on your strengths, your time, and how much you need me to be involved.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Are there rules or laws that nonprofits have to know when they get money from grants or donations?
Yes, absolutely. So a couple things. So getting money from grants and donations, some funders have reporting requirements, right? So they want to make sure that what they're giving you this money for, that you're following those guidelines. And so you really have to keep excellent records so that you can report out to let them know how the money was spent. And I
Okay.
always say too, if because you're doing a proposed budget for the most part, and things may change, things may come up. But just be honest with the funders, because they may allow you to shift the money to another line item in your budget, because you
Okay.
underused it in another capacity.
Okay.
In terms of reporting requirements with the IRS, of course, you have to file every year.
Okay.
Several years ago, if you didn't bring in over 50,000, you didn't have to report at all. But now the
Mm.
IRS is doing a really good job of tracking all nonprofits. So if you only bring in um, less than 50,000, you would only have to do like what they call a 990 postcard, right? And it's
Okay.
just really their way, the IRS way of tracking your nonprofit. And it's
Okay.
essential that you do that, because some people say, well, we didn't bring in enough money, but you still need to do that postcard. And then
Okay.
as your organization grow over 50,000, then there's the 990 easy form and 990 long form. And think of that in terms of your own personal taxes and how
Okay.
that works. But if you
Okay.
do not file within 3 years, then you can lose your tax exemption.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you
And
must file.
okay. And that's leading me to my next question. What problems or mistakes should nonprofits be careful to avoid and how they can stay safe?
Yes. So that is one of them. If you do
Okay.
not file 3 consecutive years, you can lose your tax exemption with the federal government.
Okay.
And although there's an opportunity to get it back, it's a very tedious process. So I would
Okay.
encourage you to file. The
Okay.
other things that come up is your board understanding their requirements and responsibilities. Now, technically, the board has a fiduciary duty of care, obedience, and loyalty, right? It sounds simple, but there's work that go into that. Because some people, you ask them to sit on the board, and because they like you, they're like, oh, that sounds like a good mission. They don't fully understand their role and responsibilities. But as a board member, they have to be engaged. They have to actively participate, review documents. There's no excuse to say, I didn't know. You cannot say that as a board member.
Okay.
There's a duty of loyalty where you're acting in the best interest of the organization and not using the organization for personal gain, right? Because you have a business, oh, I'll sit on the board and I'll throw all the business that the organization needs to my personal business. Now, there are opportunities where you can work with someone on the board that has a business, but that means they have to sit out. They can't vote, you know. That's part of a conflict of interest. And that's
Oh,
another requirement that has to be completed when you're filing for 501c3.
okay. That's interesting that you said that because
Mm-hmm.
as an agent, um, lately I haven't been showing properties, and that's because I'm getting older. I'm going through some physical problems. So I've been focusing more on educating and referring clients to other
Mm-hmm.
agents. If I were to start a nonprofit educating people on first time home ownership, they're going to want a realtor, and they usually want me when I'm teaching. But if I am the president, I would not be able to refer them out to other agents and get a commission from that because that's a conflict of interest.
So this is what I would say. You can refer them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't take a commission. I would have them donate that commission to your nonprofit.
Okay.
To keep it clean.
Okay.
Because again, you have to complete a conflict of interest statement, and it lets the board members know the do's and don'ts that you can and cannot do when intermingling businesses if you're a board member as a part of that organization. And so it can be very tricky, but the safest way is to, one, not be the voting person if you're connected to whatever business that wants to partner with your organization, right?
Okay.
And so you sit out, you don't vote in that aspect. But you also, again, cannot have any personal gain as part of your duty of loyalty to your organization. Right.
Okay. So basically, when I become your client and I have these ideas in my head, because I do think out the box and I be trying to figure it out, I can call you and you'll say, Mary, don't do that. Or you can do that.
I'll say
That's
that too.
good to
I'm
know.
saying have them donate to your organization because it keeps it clean. So it's not benefiting you, but it's benefiting your organization. And it's an opportunity to sort of bring in funds to help build and promote your organization. So it's just like they're giving back because you made that referral. Like I would spread it out and not just have one person that you're always sending them to, because that could be a little gray. But you can have several resources that you can refer people out to, and that wouldn't pose a conflict.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
With your experience, because you've been doing this for a while and you see some of the good that nonprofits have done, can you speak to anyone in particular that you work with from the ground up and they're doing something spectacular in the community that you're quite proud of?
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought about a couple when I was thinking about this question. So I have, one organization, I actually work with them to get funding, right? So they were already set up, but he does reentry work. And so, and not just reentry, but anyone that's coming home or have been homeless or live in a halfway house. And so he does these classes every couple of weeks. And he also, gives out hygiene packets and he gets donations. And to see people sort of light up with that fresh start, and you find out you don't really think about that when someone comes home and the basics that they don't have, or even have family members to give them those items to come, still have your dignity, receive these packages, as well as a wealth of information and knowledge that he brings people in to talk to them about life, how to be successful, how to navigate different things. Because I truly believe that people just need support, right? Mm-hmm. When they need to a hand up, right? And they need support and they need to feel comfortable and able to ask those questions. Mm-hmm. And so to have people who genuinely care about your well-being being there to support you is always wonderful. And every time I go on Instagram and see his work, I get so excited because I knew, I was a part of that. And to see the type of work that's really close to my heart, I have someone else that I have helped from the ground up that's working in early childhood literacy. Let's Read. And so to provide workshops, because literacy is a huge issue in our city, in our country, but to catch them while they're young. And so, the founder is also an author. So not only does she give out books, but she does assessments on young people. And that could be expensive, or sometimes it's not taught in school. And that's how kids will continue to be promoted. But to do the assessments with families, to let them know where their child is, and to be able to provide them support at no cost, really, in how she does the work is phenomenal as well.
Okay. All right. I know someone who actually wants to focus on mental health in the Black community, but they want to use they want to provide treatment and their treatment is in different strands of cannabis. Now,
Oh, interesting.
is that a thing? Is there money in that? Is anybody donating money to that?
Honestly, I will certainly need to research that, but I can almost assure that person that on both ends, whether that's a for-profit or nonprofit, they can actually find funding because it's a unique way of treatment. It's not heavily publicized.
Mm-hmm.
People often do self-medicate, but to do it in a
And
right can be
yeah.
helpful. But yes, because with the legalization of cannabis and
Uh-huh.
medical use, there's certainly funding on the for-profit side, but that would be interesting on the nonprofit end. I
Well,
would not be
I
surprised.
will tell her to get in touch with you
Yeah,
on
I
that
would
one
not be
then.
surprised.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you probably have your fingers on the pulse when it comes to different grants and money that's out there. You know what's out there. So if somebody came to you and said, "This is my idea," you could actually point them to a grant and actually, do you write the grants for them?
So I was about to say that. So I do some grant writing. I used to do it a lot, but the way life works out, I have to pull back and know my limits. But
Okay.
I certainly am aware, I have lots of resources for funding opportunities. And then depending on the extent of the grant, I do write. I will write it or I will refer you out. But I certainly have the resources and information on different types of funding that is available. And it's
Okay.
growing.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
I'm gonna come back to that, but I want to make sure I didn't miss any points.
Okay.
So first, you got to get your 501. What is it called?
C3,
501. Okay,
501c3.
501c3. And that's the only type of designation for a nonprofit is a 501c.
Yes.
Okay, C3.
C3.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So you first got to get that. How long does that take to come in?
Okay. So the process varied over the years, especially when COVID hit, it put them back a few months. But I think they're
Mhm.
back on track. So when you first start with your state filing, that's 7 to 10 days to come back. I always say while you're waiting on that to come back, that's when you and the board work on your bylaws, your conflict of interest statement. And then once that comes back and you have your EIN number, then you file for the 501c3. That takes, I believe, like up to 90 days. Sometimes it's shorter, but 90 days. It also depends. So here's the other thing. It depends on your organization. If your organization has a budget of over 250,000, then you have to file the regular form. Or if you're a church, you file the regular form. So that may
Okay.
take a little longer to come back. But
Okay.
otherwise, you can file the easy form
Hmm.
that takes, like I said, up to 90 days. And that's
The
because
easy
your
form of the 501.
C3.
Okay. The
Yes.
easy form of the 501c3. And then you said something about after you and your board come up with your bylaws and your mission statement. So, are you saying that you already have to choose your board already before even applying for your 501c3? And what
Yes.
do you guys have to
Even
incorporate? Is that what has to happen first?
yes, I was gonna say even before your state paperwork, you want your board
Okay.
members identified, right?
Okay. And then you have to be
Because
incorporated. Like, do you have to have paperwork on that or?
well, that's your state incorporation. That's the
Okay.
paperwork you're filing, your state
Okay.
incorporation, and they're listed on that application. Now, you as the founder will be the incorporator that's responsible for everything, but you do list your board members. So you
Okay.
do want to have them identified before you file your state incorporation papers. And
Okay.
then that way, as you're progressing through the process for the 501c3 application, your board members are identified. You have your president, your secretary, and your treasurer. Um,
Okay.
and then you have your bylaws completed because whether it's the easy form, the short form, or the long form for the 501c3, there are certain questions that they ask that are related to your bylaws. And you have
Okay.
to state what page it's on, what article it is, and that
Okay.
these things have been approved by your
Okay.
board.
Okay. And so when do you actually get to the point where you can open the doors and you can start getting money, getting donations? When do you get to that point?
So that varies. I encourage people after you do your state incorporation that you can kind of start the process, because when you file the 501c3, they date it retro from your date of filing. So although it may
Okay.
take 90 days, you're dated as a nonprofit from your date of filing the application. But
Okay.
some funders, however, may actually have you enter your EIN number, which becomes your tax exempt number, just to see if you're in the system. And so that can take like 3 to 6 months for the IRS to put you in their system.
Okay.
But
Okay.
again, if you're just getting donations from fundraising or from personal, friends, it's the date of filing.
Okay. I have another friend she's a nurse, and she wanted to do something. She wants to start some type of nonprofit centered around helping. I think it was like home health care of some sort, but she wanted to purchase a home with lots of bedrooms and house those people there and have nurses that take care of them, that kind of thing. Is that a thing? Are
That
people
is,
doing stuff like that?
yes, they are. They are. Mostly that's done on a for-profit end.
Mm.
Now, if you're looking to have people from, I guess, that may receive like, what do you call it, like assistance, Medicaid,
Mm.
or some type of public assistance, you can set it up. You can set up as a nonprofit organization that maybe offer like the housing, sort of. I don't want to say like, independent living. That's what I'll call
Okay, okay,
it.
okay,
Independent
okay,
living. And so if you take that track, that's more along the lines of that you could set up as a nonprofit organization.
okay. Is there anything that you think we should know about that I didn't get a chance to ask about?
When I was talking about requirements and the duty of care, duty of loyalty for board members, there's also that duty of obedience. And we did talk about it a little earlier, but I just want to emphasize that involves following all applicable laws, complying with the reporting requirements, and as well as following your organization's bylaws and articles. And your bylaws can be amended. But that's the board sitting down and doing that. But I always stress, like, follow your bylaws. They're your
Okay,
guide. You
okay,
can avoid liability in that regard. I
okay.
will say, that's what I was going to say, with the board member, with the founder.
Hmm.
When you're on preparing for the board and we get the
Hmm.
bylaws together, I always encourage the founder to have a founder's clause in your bylaws, right?
A
And so what
founder's
does that
clause?
mean? Yes.
Okay,
So a founder's clause pretty much says that if the founder comes off of the board and becomes the CEO of the organization, then that person is now a paid employee of the organization, right? And their boss is now the board. And there are
mm.
times
I'm glad
when,
you're going there.
just like a regular employee, you can be terminated, in that position, right? But you sit back and like, wait, this is my organization. I started this, right? But your board can terminate that employment because you're now an employee. So what the founder clause does is says that as long as the organization exists, the founder can always come back and sit on the board as a board member, right? So that this way, it's not a complete win-win, but this way you still sit on the board, you still can influence the mission of the organization that you created. And so it's
Okay.
really essential, because I have seen that happen where where the founder comes off of the board because you can't be a paid board member, becomes a paid employee, and then for whatever reasons is terminated.
What would be a reason that would get them? Because what? Okay, so from what I'm hearing you say, the founder immediately becomes the CEO, whether they have experience or not. They just become the CEO. Is that how that works?
So it depends on the board. I
Okay.
mean, you ideally want to have some experience, or you want to
Hmm.
get some experience, but typically that's what usually happens. Or they come off in some sort of paid capacity position because they're looking to be paid for their organization.
And
that
it would
they
be an
have
upper
created.
level position, of course.
Absolutely. Upper level. Because they can be the well, if they don't have financial experience, I wouldn't recommend them being the CFO, but they can be the CEO or the CAO, Chief Administrative Officer. You know how we can come up with titles.
Okay.
But
And what would cause the board to fire them?
So, well, one instance was a school that was started, and the founder became the CEO of the school. The school did not meet the requirements in as far as the school district was concerned, and so they pretty much said, after a certain period of time, they pretty much said, maybe it's your leadership, right? And you may need to change your leadership in order for your school to be successful. And so then that person was terminated, almost because they had, the board almost didn't have a choice to terminate them. Or the person comes off, the CEO comes off, and they're a paid employee, but they're not handling the duties of a job. Say they don't have.
They went on vacation.
Went on vacation. They're not, when they don't have any vacation days left. Because unfortunately, sometimes things happen. People come off, they get in that check, and they're not really doing the work that they said needed to take place. So it could vary. Any type of offenses that are considered unemployable, and you can be terminated, it can happen. But like I said, the downside is now they're out. And here they started this organization. And that could really be a hurt piece, because you had this mission and vision, and now you're watching them go off and do great, and you're not a part of it.
So as long as you have the founder's clause, you can remain a part of the mission.
Yes, you could remain a part of the mission. Yep, you can remain a part of a mission. You can rebuild the board, and maybe perhaps you learn and you can come back off.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. All right, listeners, if you get fired from your dream, you can come back some kind of way if you have a clause in there. So that's good to know.
Absolutely.
What if the person already has their 501c3 and they messed up? Maybe they didn't do their taxes like they were supposed to, whatnot. Can they come to you and get it straightened out?
I can do the legwork to research, what was needed, what years they didn't file, and what would be the process for them to be reinstated. So yes, they can come to me.
Okay,
because I was just sitting here thinking, because that also can be another daunting task to say, I just lost it. But when you get into the weeds of it, and so for somebody like me, it's a little more simple to look up to find out what it is for them. And so I don't mind doing that.
Okay. Can somebody take a for-profit business and make it a non-profit business?
It depends. I would encourage you to have a for-profit and then also have a non-profit arm of your for-profit business.
Oh, really? What does that look like?
Yes. So if you have your for-profit and you're doing whatever you're doing to earn money, take a non-profit arm that would support some need in the community that could be related to what you're doing in business. And then you also can set it up where you can donate a portion of or some of your profits from your for-profit to your nonprofit. So there's your tax write-off on that end. And then you're also sustaining your nonprofit.
Do we need to get deeper into that in our LLC conversation? Do we need to... Do I need to save that for the LLC conversation? That sounds good.
Yes.
We will talk about that next time. Sorry, folks, we can't do it today, but we're going to have that conversation.
Yes.
LLC, but make sure you have a nonprofit arm to your LLC. That's the next conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I can see how that could work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're getting paid, but you're also giving back at the same time.
Exactly.
And they're both working off of each other. I like that. So how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yes. So if you have any questions or you're looking for some support, you can certainly email me at essentialpiece2014 at gmail.com. That's essentialpiece2014 at gmail.com. An interesting story, that name, someone actually helped me come up with that name, is because when I was explaining to them about how I've run into people that are missing these documents or don't have their paperwork together, so they kind of hit a ceiling in terms of growing their organization. And she says, "Oh, so they're missing their essential piece." I said,
Oh,
"You're right." Because that's what
oh.
happens to us, especially in our community. We hit a ceiling because we're not set up properly, and we're doing all of this great work and we can only go but so far. So, again, if you need to reach me, essentialpiece2014 at gmail.com.
And honestly, when I saw the name of your company, that was the first thing I thought. Oh, she's got the essential pieces that we need to be legal. Okay. That's the first thing I thought. That's good.
Exactly.
That's a
Yep,
good
yep.
that's a
It's
good
kind of
name.
catchy.
Patty, thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for sharing your expertise. You should beef up that LinkedIn of yours, woman.
Oh, well, look, we'll have to talk about that.
Okay, do you? Because that's what I can do. I can help you get
Yes,
that straight.
I
Because
don't even be on there like that. My
you
life.
got to be on it because you are needed. You got a business that we need you, because our
Yeah,
community needs all kinds of support. And it's
yeah.
disgusting that all that money is out there and we are not getting it.
It really is. It really is. Even when after COVID, when they were helping small businesses, it was a lot of people, even nonprofit and even small businesses that lost out because their paperwork wasn't set up.
Oh,
And you
wow.
had to have at least 1 or 2 years of taxes to show, although you were existing for 10 years, but a lot of people lost out on that because they didn't have everything set up.
Mm.
And you hear about all these other people that took all this money and then got to give it
I
back.
know.
All this money that was given and we
Mm,
didn't get it.
mm, mm. Well, we're going to start getting it now
Yes.
with the help of Miss Patty Jones Thompson. We're going to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
You have any final words before we say goodbye?
Well, I just want to, encourage people. If you have an idea, a thought or something that you're really interested in doing, reach out or talk it over because there's plenty of work that needs to be done in our community and our society. And I'm sure that with your talent and your expertise, that you can make a difference in our society and in our world.
And there you have it, folks. Another enlightening episode of MH Knows or She Knows Someone Who Does, Unlocking Real Estate Secrets. We've been fortunate to have Patty Jones Thompson as our guide today, walking us through the essential aspects of 501c3s and the comprehensive journey of establishing and sustaining a nonprofit organization. A heartfelt thank you to Patty Jones Thompson for sharing her wealth of knowledge and providing us with valuable insights into the world of nonprofits. And to my dedicated listeners, thank you for joining us on this enlightening episode of MH Knows or She Knows Someone Who Does, How to Start a Nonprofit Organization. I am committed to continuing this journey with you, bringing you more real estate and financial wisdom, and introducing you to experts who truly understand the intricacies of their field. If you found today's episode valuable, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps me continue to provide you with quality content. Until next time, this is Marianne Holt signing off and reminding you that when it comes to forming a nonprofit, knowledge is the key to your success. Stay curious, stay informed, and remember, MH knows or she knows someone who does. Take care.